What's that? What's that noise?
The sound of the start of your weekend.
I thought I had you there. Didn't. You've picked it. Little googly for me, and you've picked it.
You said the same thing at the beginning of the podcast for the last 5 years.
No, but I've never done the whole like, oh, what's that? What's that?
Yeah, but it's not hard to think what you're getting at.
Okay, we're trying to add a bit of drama to the NTT20 Betting Show. Welcome. Thank you for listening. This show is sponsored by AK Bets. It's me, Ali Maxwell, and him, George Elek, making some betting picks ahead of this weekend's EFL slate. This show is very strictly for over 18s only. Gambling comes with significant risks. We ask that anyone listening to or watching this show be gamble aware, understand the risks that come with gambling, and if you don't feel that you do, begambleaware.org is a fantastic resource in order to do so. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. How are you?
A bit worried about you.
Why?
Well, you were unfortunate last week.
I know.
It was a -5.
Yep.
It was a nap that drew 0-0 with Andy Cook taking a shot that went, to my untrained eye, about a yard over the line.
Yeah.
Not given.
Happens.
And you went on a stag do, played an 11-a-side game against a French team and lost 10-0.
Yeah.
It's not gone well, has it?
It is 1 week of 40. I'm happy to I'm gonna have more -5s over the course of the season, probably. Just got to accept that they happen. Fingers crossed next time a team that I back to win and they put the ball in the goal, they're given the goal.
That would be good, wouldn't it? That would be good. They say it evens itself out over the course of the season.
Yeah, I think it does.
And you don't agree with that?
Nope.
So an even tougher scene. You can't even go to sleep at night knowing that you'll get one that's goal given when it shouldn't be.
But I might end up being ahead in luck.
That's the game. My week was only better because of Star Anis adding some flavour to my weekend. Mehmeti scoring at 3:05 for Bristol City, 4-1 winner that wipes out what was 4 points lost elsewhere. My nap and my next bet both lost to 0. Cole, you making me look very silly by beating MK 2-0. And then Derby 1, Middlesbrough 0 that's what I would call a traumatic shot map.
Yeah.
I couldn't catch the game, but I was watching the live shot map on FOTMob. Pretty tough scene, fairly traumatic watching the highlights as well. And after all the nonsense about arepas and duck wraps, neither Connor Hall nor my pick, Ben Hennigan, had a shot for Vale last week. So work to do here. What's your best bet this weekend, George? What's your nap?
Very League One focused this weekend, and my nap is Reading. Draw no bet at Wrexham at 7-4, which I think is a fantastic price. Yeah. I think Reading are probably the team in the EFL at the moment that I think the market has the most wrong, where from 2 performances this season, a 1-1 draw against Birmingham in which they were really good at 0-0, and then only a very, very late penalty from Birmingham stopped them from taking all 3 points. And then, more impressively, I would say, a 2-0 win against Wigan on Saturday, where it was as one-sided a 2-0 win as you're going to see, where not only were they by far the better team, scored 2 very good goals, but Wigan couldn't really get into the game, couldn't really create anything of note, couldn't really get near Reading. And I think I've seen enough over 2 games and the back end of last season where they were so impressive under Ruben Sellers to suggest that despite off-field issues, despite certain players being sold, they are operating at a very high level in League One as a football team. Some of those players or the youngsters who they've had to blood are proving to be incredibly talented. Kelvin Abashaman has 2 goals in 2, playing this very weird kind of Hadji Wright-ish, like inside left forward role. But Sam Smith looks to be playing a little bit deeper this season, which means that he's definitely their key attacking threat and someone who looks really polished in the final third. Ben Elliott, who's playing a more withdrawn midfield role, already impressing so far this season too, alongside players that we know are good for the level, such as the aforementioned Smith, such as Lewis Wing. They're just really effective right now. And in Ruben Sellers, they have the manager that probably, if I was to say in League One right now, if there was a manager who's going to go to the very top, he'd probably be the one, because he's had to deal with really difficult circumstances, with the issues off the pitch, which look like they are coming to an end with the takeover from Rob Couhig of Reading. But if you just ignore all outside noise and all perceptions of issues that they've had for quite a while now, players leaving, the level of performance has been consistently very good. Now, Wrexham have come up and done well. Like they've started pretty well. They won 3-2 on opening day against Wycombe. They went to Bolton and got a really good draw 0-0. The 3 goals they scored against Wycombe were thanks to some unbelievable finishing, I would say. Marriott and Fletcher scoring 2 unbelievable goals. Wycombe were able to create quite a lot of chances against them, and that has been pretty consistent with Wrexham, where they've been so dominant at home, but they normally win games at home 5-3 rather than 2-0. Like, it's been a place where we see a lot of goals. And I think Reading will fancy their chances of going to Wrexham, like a lot of teams do, and creating plenty of opportunities, but should be a much more difficult team to break down than we've seen Wrexham face on opening day. And then up against a decent defence on Saturday against Bolton, they weren't particularly adept at breaking them down. Like right now, if I was to say which of these two teams I think is the better team, I would say Wycombe aren't one of the two teams. I would say Reading, without a doubt. And I think we're going to see over the next few weeks the market correct itself to support that. I think taking the draw out and getting 7-4 about Reading is a massive bit of value about a team where all evidence to hand suggests that they are right now, I'd say, a top 6, top 7 League One side.
I love it. I'm fully on board. The George Elek Reading FC relationship development is an absolute treat. To all of us in the Thames Valley, we're smiling. We're smiling at that. My nap is Wimbledon draw no bet. They're away at Cheltenham. The price with AK Bets is even money. Wimbledon DNB. This is not a game that I would choose to watch necessarily. 3-5-2 will come up against 3-5-2. And you guys know that is not my favourite visual. But it does contribute to why I want to get with the team that I think has better players, both 11v11 and off the bench. Now, getting with the team that has better players is not a foolhardy plan, but I think when you're watching a game where the two teams are playing with very similar shapes, it has a bit more importance. The 1v1 battles all over the pitch, wing-backs up against wing-backs, the 2 strikers up against the 3 centre-backs, and the 3 in midfield up against each other and how they perform. It's all really important because the individual battles are often going to make the difference. There won't be that the way that the two teams play could easily cancel each other out if everything was kind of flat and normal. Cheltenham have had a weird start, like their 2 games have been kind of mirror images. On opening day, a really strong start, 2-0 up against Newport, pegged back to 2-2, found it to win it late through Joel Colwell. Then last weekend, they were 2-0 down to Grimsby. They roared back to 2-2 and then lost the game to a late free kick from range from Jordan Davis. So I wouldn't say I've got any massive conclusions on their performance level so far. I guess what I think is that the two teams they've played maybe haven't been particularly strong League Two teams right now. That's my opinion anyway. The thing for me, which is both kind of interesting from a football fan point of view, but also makes me want to get against Cheltenham, is this. 10 of the players, or there have been 10 players that have started both games so far this season. 6 of them are 22 and under, which slightly surprised me how young they are. And only one of those, Lewis Payne, has any experience of EFL football before this season. So Ibrahim Bakare and Levi Lang, the two of the 3 centre-backs. Joel Colwell, who's obviously had a good start with a brace on debut. Liam Dawson, the striker they bought from non-league, and Harrison Sona as well. And then Lewis Payne. That's more than half of their outfielders, and only one of them's really got any EFL experience. And while that's not a massive issue overall, I think Wimbledon are a bad team to come up against with that sort of young and inexperienced side, because they are incredibly big and strong. The game will generally be played on pretty low margins, and they really kind of know what they're doing. They're very good in both boxes. A 4-2 win for Wimbledon on opening day against Col U. They were clearly the better side. That was at home. And then they lost 2-0 at Bromley, which was a pretty even game that had spells for each team, but they were on the wrong side of it. Bromley's finishing clinical, and Wimbledon's not that. So even having conceded 2 goals in both games so far, I still believe Wimbledon are and will be a very strong defensive side. They've only faced 15 shots so far, which only Notts and Walsall have faced fewer. So I am backing Wimbledon, draw no bet at Cheltenham, and even money for all of the above reasons. For anyone looking to sign up to AK Bets today, do use the promo code NTT100. The link is in the description for how to do that. And if your first bet is an accumulator on football with a minimum of 4 selections, AK Bets will boost the profit gained on that initial bet by 25% in the form of a free bet up to a value of £100. Further T's and C's and more details accessible on the AK Bets website. Next best.
Exeter 6-4. Draw no bet home to Peterborough with AK Bets. Yeah, this is a case I think I've been fairly negative on Posh all season given the players that they've lost. And they, on Saturday, went out and they put in a really big performance and a really important result for them, having gone 1-0 down at Shrewsbury to win the game 4-1, with Kwame Poku scoring 2, with Joel Randall scoring 2, with Ibiodo playing a starring role on the left-hand side. And there's no denying that is very good. However, I wouldn't be taking that as League One currency to mean that they're going to be what they were last season. I think Shrewsbury are, or look to be, by a stretch, the worst team in the league. Mm-hmm. I think there's a possibility that's a bit of false form. I think decent League One sides at the moment beating Shrewsbury with relative ease is going to be something we see fairly consistently. I do, however, think that Exeter's bit of form on opening day, beating Rotherham 1-0, is probably the most impressive that we've seen from these sides so far, in how they were able to manage the game, they were able to deal with Exeter's aerial threat and general threat pretty capably. I think Kramer looks like a really astute pickup from Brentford on loan, who scored from a set piece against Northampton last Saturday. In that game, Exeter were pretty good. Like, they went ahead 1-0. They weathered a bit of a storm from Northampton in the second half of the first half, and then for the first 20 minutes or so of the second half, if there was another team that was going to score a goal, it was Exeter. They were well on top throughout, and it was actually Northampton's first shot in the second half that put them level after 71 minutes. They easily could have gone clear there
as well.
Exactly. So I think Exeter have looked pretty good this season, a team that, again, I wasn't particularly keen on to start the campaign, but I think in both performances we've seen a pretty high level of performance. And home advantage has to be important here as well. It's not often that you get 6-4 about a home team, draw no bet. And normally when you do, it's because there is a pretty wide gulf between the quality of both sides. And I'm just not entirely convinced that's the case here.
Yeah, my next best in League Two, Bromley double chance up at Bradford. This is their first season in the EFL. And Bradford are the team with the biggest fan base in the EFL, in League Two. And so there is an argument that this is kind of Bromley's biggest or toughest ever sort of regulation league game, which I quite like. And that doesn't put me off them. Double chance at 6-5, 2.2. AK Bet's a top price for this pick. Bromley have won both of their EFL games, 2-0 so far, winning with complete ease up at Harrogate, and then winning a battle 2-0 against Wimbledon with some smart finishing last time out. And the picture is continuing to be built of a team that is very, very tough to beat. And if you go back to the last portion of the National League campaign, when they got over the line and won the playoffs, this is a team that's only lost 3 of their last 18 league games, including playoffs. Obviously, we've got the draw on side here and a Bromley victory, so that's why this is even more important than it ordinarily would be if I was just picking them to win. Away from home last season in the National League, they lost only 5 of 23, which is amazing, really. 18 of their games were either draws or Bromley wins. We've seen it already. This is a squad that's come up. They're absolutely locked in. Woodman's added a couple, but mainly this is the core of the squad, and they know exactly how to play to get the most out of any game. And we get Michael Cheek on our side, who is getting his first shot at the EFL, having scored tons and tons of goals, like 150 plus in the last 10 years in the National League, and he's got 2 and 2, and his finishing looks fantastic. So I like that we've got him on side. When it comes to Bradford, they were your nap last week. They drew 0-0 against Salford. Andy Cook had the goal that wasn't given that should have been. It's not massively about Bradford this. I don't want to badmouth them. I think they're a good team, so I'm not going to stretch to say that they're not. I do think, though, there is enough reason in home games to still consider getting against them when they're a short price to win, as they are here. There is quite a significant body of evidence that Bradford City find it hard to play home league games in League Two. Last season, they had the 3rd best away record in League Two and the 16th best home record. They won 9 of 23. The year before that, they had the 5th best away record, the 10th best home record. They only won 9 of 23. The year before that, they had the 9th best away record, the 19th best home record. They won 6 out of 23. This season, it's 1-0 draw. So
Do you reckon that we've ever on this show given arguments of two sides of the same coin in such quick succession before? Well, I was there last week saying, like, don't worry about the home form, lads. It's going to be okay. And then next week, I mean, with different people. It's only
with
fair.
different people, and it's early in the season, and opinions can be changed fairly rapidly, I would suggest. But I guess my point is, we've got the draw on side, we've got Bromley on side, and in Bradford's last 70 home league games, they've won 24 of them. So to look at it the other way, the opposition team double chance bet has won 66% of the time. And Bradford will have been favourites for a huge proportion of those games. So all of that means I'm pretty excited to have Bromley double chance on side at 6-5, 2.2 with AK bets. Goal scorer, the goal scorer.
Davis, Keylor, Dunn.
Oh.
Anytime for Mansfield at 3-1 away at Lincoln.
The gunman.
Lincoln obviously haven't started the season in great defensive form thus far. Unlike the Lincoln we saw under Michael Scabala at the back end of last season. Mansfield, on the other hand, have looked really good. I think they've settled into life in League One very well. It looks like they're kind of picking up where they left off to an extent. Scored 3 goals last time out in a 3-3 draw against Burton in a game they probably, I think they definitely did deserve to win, having beaten Barnsley on opening evening 2-1. When you look at, it's a bit of a surprise that David Keylor-Dunn hasn't scored yet. He had 6 shots in the game against Burton. He's playing that role behind the 2 strikers where he's still pretty much their biggest goal threat, even with Will Evans coming into the side. And the way that they're playing and the way they played last season under Clough, like they just have no issue in creating chances. I think he's like as reliable a player that you know is going to have 2 or 3 opportunities per game out there. And there are loads of players that I like this week who've already scored 1 or 2, and I had to keep kind of not putting them up, thinking like, are they just going to carry on scoring? Are they just going to keep going? Like, realistically, no. Find someone who is getting into goal scoring opportunities, who's yet to find the back of the net, who we know is a good finisher. And I think Keylor-Dunn fits that bill massively for a side that I kind of fancy to go and get something at Lincoln at a fair price. So DKD, who is still a Mansfield player, is my selection at 3-1.
Maybe the story of this year's betting show is going to be me quite often doing the opposite of something that you've just said. I'm backing against Bradford in home games when you've said don't worry about that home
and you're
form.
putting up someone who keeps scoring.
Well, scored 2 last time out in the league. Joel Randall of Peterborough is my goal scorer pick.
For a team that I've taken on.
Yeah, a team that you've taken on.
Operation Lay Me.
Yeah. 7-2, Joel Randall. Peterborough's number 10. AK bets are very competitive price there. A fun narrative for this game, which is already exciting given that it's Georgia's next best, is that Joel Randall is a Exeter Academy graduate, had a breakout season for Exeter in the 2021 season when no fans were in the ground. So the Exeter fans never truly got to savour Randall's breakout season. He's been playing for Peterborough ever since. Peterborough also have Archie Collins and Jack Sparks as starters, both other academy graduates. So a third of their team practically is academy or Exeter Academy, which I think adds a nice wrinkle to this. Randall's a number 10 in a 4-2-3-1. Very quick, quality player, technical, still improving. I think could be one of the most dangerous attackers at the level this season. He scored 2 against Shrewsbury last week. I mean, he was just finishing up counter-attacks there as Shrewsbury kind of fell off towards the end of the game. So I'm not using that as like strong signal that he's going to bang into every game. But any time landed in 10 of his 40 league starts last season. So I just like him as a goal scorer that I think is improving. And I think he's taking on a more senior role in the posh attack as well. I also think this could be quite a high-scoring game. That's quite important for me here. I don't hate your Exeter pick at all. I think they have started well, but I think both teams are playing quite expansive football. I think they will both be going for the win here, and that's a nice little alchemy for goals. I think there'll be space for Randall, particularly in transition. If Peterborough can break with the same quality that they did last weekend, he's got the speed to make sure that he's speeding past the Exeter midfielders, Francis and Macmillan, getting into dangerous positions during dangerous attacks. And it's just that extra motivation of playing at his old club, just nudging me over the cliff face, backing Joel Randall anytime at 7-2. You can back these picks very easily on the AK Bets website. They are putting up our picks in a special section. If you go to football specials the Not the Top 20 specials are just right there for you.
Yes.
So our Goalscorer Picks and some other bits and bobs, including the BTTS sixfold, can be found at 2 clicks of a button. What's your long shot?
Burton and BTTS at home to Stevenage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm amazed Stevenage are favourites for this one. Definitely next on the list, or possibly, because I like this angle, otherwise Burton would be sitting as one of my nap or next best. I think there's way too much of last season being put into this. The market seems to love Stevenage right now, but I'm not necessarily seeing it myself. A win against Shrewsbury, as I said early on in the show, isn't anything I don't think to get particularly excited by, as dominant as they were. And then they only really turned up against Huddersfield when they were 2-0 down. They were by far and away the worst side in that game, and especially from an attacking standpoint, couldn't really get a foothold in it. And yeah, their XG numbers might be okay, but they're massively boosted by the fact they've had 2 penalties in their first 2 games, 1 scored and 1 missed. So I'm not really seeing it with Stevenage right now. And in Burton, you've got a side who they've played 2 games, they've got 1 point, they scored 5 goals, they've conceded 6. We have seen in terms of the players that they brought in over the summer that they are going to change the way that they play. Mark Robinson has been brought in to oversee that. A lot of young players being encouraged to be brave on the ball, to be a really aggressive press out of possession. Mm-hmm. And it's creating an environment where there is loads of goal-mouth action in both games. And the fact that Stevenage haven't been great from an attacking standpoint so far, I think is largely irrelevant. I think when Burton are playing, I think it's going to be very hard for a team to be poor from an attacking standpoint against a Burton team who create chaos, create a chaotic environment within it. So BTTS seems like an obvious way just to boost this out about a Burton team that I'm pretty confident should be favourite to win this game at home, but are currently not that.
My long shot is Tranmere 0, Walsall 0, correct score at 11-1. It's something that I mentioned on the Monday pod as an aside when I was talking about Walsall's games and how they've played out so far. Tranmere have drawn their first 2 games 0-0. Now, on the one hand, Tranmere drawing both games 0-0 so far, I know that you would tell me there is a way where it's pretty stupid to expect a third in a row. Statistically improbable. But I also think at 11-1, and the probability that suggests doesn't match up with how I think that this game will look. So what I will say is Tranmere's 2 0-0 so far have been massive 0-0 games. It's not been the case that it's just rusty finishing to start the season. I mean, against Vale, this is going forward. Tranmere had 4 shots in the first half and 3 in the second. Against Notts, 4 shots in the first half, 5 in the second. Pretty low numbers. 15 shots so far. 10 have been blocked in their 2 games. They've had 3 shots on target. But as poor as they've been going forward, they've also been solid as hell at the back. They've only faced 4 shots on target so far, and 3 of them were shots from outside the box. So Tranmere's 0-0s have been 0-0 games. And then there's Walsall, the away side here, who have the best defence in the league through 2 games in terms of barely giving up any dangerous opportunities to their opposition. They won 1-0 against Morecambe with a shot from outside the box. They won 4-0 against Swindon, where their first goal was a massive howler at the back that gave Josh Gordon a clear run at goal. And then another free kick scored from range and 2 nice goals from crosses. I think that Tranmere are going to be much harder to break down and won't gift them goals like Swindon did. So I think that this is 2 teams really strong in defence. One of them definitely not looking good going forward, and the other, the away team Walsall, with 5 goals from 2 games. But I'm not necessarily sure the evidence is there that they're going to be a particularly high-scoring team. I couldn't believe that the goal line was as high as it is, and that makes the 11-1 for a 0-0 really, really quite attractive to me. That's my long shot this week. Tranmere 0, Walsall 0, correct score 11-1. BTTS sixfold this week. We got 4 out of 6 last week. I did get 3 out of 3. You did get 1 out of 3. That's by the by.
It's a reverse of the whole of last season.
It's just worth mentioning. AK Bets have boosted this sixfold to 28-1, and that's in the specials part, the football part of the website. Tell me your 3, please.
One is that Exeter Peterborough game that you mentioned. I agree in terms of both teams.
There you go.
Looking to play a certain way.
This could all work out brilliantly, mate.
Yeah.
2-1 Exeter with a Joel Randall goal.
Ideal.
And there's 3 separate
that would be
ticks
great.
in the box.
Bang, bang, bang.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, that is amusing that anyone who follows every single thing has about those 3 things. Hull, Millwall, another one. Hull's game against Argyle may not have been as open as forecast, but still both teams scored and still a very high shot count. Millwall have been a crazy side so far this season in terms of being really poor defensively, and Duncan Watmore being very clinical in front of goal. I think Neil Harris has to sort them out at the back, but from what we're seeing at the moment, I think Millwall are one of those sides where the goal line is naturally pretty low generally, but we're seeing nothing in the evidence to suggest that it will be. And I'm with Tim Volter, I should say, in charge of Hull, I'm pretty willing to get with goals wherever possible, even if we're yet to see the craziness start. I think it is coming. And then Wigan Crawley, finally. I know Wigan aside, who didn't show up really from an attacking standpoint last time out, but Crawley, even though their last game was a 1-0 win, I think we're going to have a few games quite soon where they're going to concede a few goals because, like last season, their expected goals against is bad. They're conceding a lot of chances. Teams are being pretty wasteful against them. They still carry a massive attacking threat, as they will do under Scott Lindsay pretty consistently. And I think this feels like a good moment for Wigan to get their season up and running, albeit in what could be a fairly end-to-end game.
For my three, Sunderland-Burnley is the first one. This is definitely the game that I'd want to be at in the Championship this weekend if I had my pick. Instead, I'll be playing cricket in Amsterdam. I think the style of both teams lends itself to a goalsy game here. Lots of high pressing, lots of short build-up from the back to try and bait the press and play through it. Risk-reward, etc. And good opportunities likely to be created. I think a lot of chances for dribbly wide forwards like Jack Clark and Burnley's 10 of those to kind of face up fullbacks 1v1 and get shots off. Sunderland playing very positively and confidently, but Burnley also look electric going forward. And in fairness, Burnley have given up quite a few good chances to Luton and Cardiff, which makes me confident that Sunderland will score. But I also think they'll concede for the first time in the league this season. Too much quality in Burnley's attack, I think, both through the middle, wide areas, from midfield with Brownhill. I've got Burton Stevenage. Now, your long shot is Burton and BTTS, so you've already done the BTTS part of this. For me, Burton's just an automatic pick for this at the moment. They've had the most shots, the second most shots on target in League One, but they've conceded, 5 or 6 goals in the league already?
3 in both games.
So, yes, I think Tyrese Simpson could have a bit of fun with that high line and that young defence. And then Newport Accrington, similar to Burton, really. Newport just an auto pick for me right now. Only 3 teams have had more shots in League Two. Shots on target than these 2 teams, both sides. But Accrington have conceded 7 in 2 games and Newport have conceded 4 in 2 games. So I'm expecting goals there. The sixfold, 28-1 with AK Bets, is Hull Millwall and Sunderland Burnley in the Champ, Exeter Peterborough, Wigan Crawley and Burton Stevenage in League One, and Newport Accrington in League Two. That's been fun and I'm excited about this weekend as a result, so thank you.
Me too.
Would you be able to recap your selections?
Yep. Reading draw no bet with AK Bet 7-4 is top price out there. They are going to Wrexham. Next best is Exeter at 6-4, draw no bet as well, home to Posh. But long shot, Burton and BTTS against Stevenage at 11-2 with AK Bets. And Davis, Keylor, Dunn to score any time for Mansfield at Lincoln at 3-1.
Wimbledon draw no bet against Cheltenham at even money is my nap. My next best is Bromley, double chance, 6-5 at Bradford. My goal scorer is Joel Randall of Peterborough at 7-2. And the long shot is Tranmere 0, Walsall 0. Correct score at 11-1, all prices with AK Bets. BTTS 6-fold at 28-1. Hull Millwall, Sunderland Burnley. Then Exeter, Peterborough, Wigan Crawley and Burton Stevenage in League One. And Newport and Accrington to ice the cake. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend and go well.